We're back for part 2 of this week to talk about LEC playoffs with Caedrel, who unfortunately did not participate in them, but did do a wonderful job of doing analysis on the broadcast.
Technically, he won as many games as Fnatic. So it was just a tiebreaker that kept him out, right?
Yeah, but
was it like 2 tiebreakers or some mad shit like that?
We had a losing tiebreaker against Fnatic and Schalke, and we had a winning against everyone else basically. Vitality, SK, Misfits. So yeah, we got super unlucky.
So they're still pretty close. So basically as close as you can be without qualifying.
Yeah, I mean it's the first time a team's ever not made playoffs with 8 wins, so that sucks.
Breaking records, setting new ground, doing things people have never said. People said it couldn't be done, but you know what? You knew better. So
we're record breakers.
I'd like to think that if it had been you instead of Fnatic, that you would have 3-0'd Rogue as well, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean Rogue slumped so hard in playoffs out of nowhere. I was so surprised.
We have to start with this one, because what was so ridiculous, and what we were talking about in the previous episode of Summoning Insights that we did, was that this team of Fnatic was actually they had lost all of their second round robin games to the other playoff teams. So
except SK, but yeah, I think that was the only one they didn't, because they went at the very end where it didn't matter. You're right.
Yes,
I think
except for the meaningless game against SK, Fnatic had lost to all of the other playoff teams. Which,
don't worry, Monty, that will now be retconned, and actually they never lost those games, and they came in, I think, second seed, and they were always the favourite for the series. You know what I mean? Following League of Legends very long, Monty.
So I was, needless to say, like, we did write them off in the last episode, right? We didn't think that this team was going to be doing anything at all. And yet they end up actually going ahead and 3-0ing the top seed, which is a massive upset by any metric.
Of course.
And I will say that part of Fnatic looking poor was, I think, that Bwipo and Hylissang's individual performances, like they would just actually throw games at times. And so I don't think I would expect them to do that forever, right? And so perhaps it was a mentality thing where they were coming into the playoffs and actually did have improved individual performances as a result. But what was your read on Fnatic coming into the playoffs, and what do you think were the major reasons they turned it around?
Well, I know everyone's been saying they had internal issues throughout the split and they couldn't find their style, and there was loads of disputes going on in the team and whatever. And I mean, you're right. I think Bwipo and Hylissang were having their complete grief moments, just completely throwing games. I don't know. Their playstyle was really weird. It was like they would just pick champions to fight. They would fight you every single fight, and they'd keep fighting until their next explodes or yours explodes. And even if the fight was bad, they would just flash on you no matter what. And Hylissang and Bwipo were always those people doing it. So it kind of gave a feel that like they were so inconsistent that you thought like, okay, they're probably going to lose games no matter what. So coming into playoffs, I really thought that they would get stomped by Rogue, because Rogue looked so fucking good. It was crazy how good Rogue looked. But I don't know. I think their drafts were pretty, like, they obviously choreographed their drafts the way Fnatic drafted. I think putting Nemesis on something like Lucian, something you can't int on and you're always strong on, is like a good thing, and it always wins lane. So that kind of covered one of their potholes throughout the split. And then Bwipo being on tanks covered the other pothole, and then Hylissang was just stepping up, and Reckless was playing good, and Selfmade, he's really good on carries. So I don't know, Rogue, I don't know if they slumped or whatever, but Fnatic just, I don't know, just stomped kind of.
That's the problem with this series, isn't it? It's like both at the same time. Like clearly a bunch of Fnatic players played a lot better. I think actually that's one of the key elements that they found champions Nemesis could play on actually after such a bad split. And then even worse, on the other side, most players on Rogue looked way worse in this series. It wasn't like just one guy had a bad series. Aside from like a few hooks from Vander, like what did they even do on the Rogue side? Like I feel like it was both at the same time. That's why it was a bad 3-0. It wasn't like a great game for either team, to be fair.
Yeah, they kind of just put Lars on Azir 3 games in a row. He was quiet. He didn't win lane because, I mean, Lucian's quite a hard matchup for him. He couldn't really impact the map if he's playing scaling. Finn was getting stomped every lane.
Series, mate. Come on.
Yeah, he was against tanks every lane, and he was losing every lane. Even when they're first picking things like Gangplank, you'd expect, okay, if we're going to first pick Gangplank, then this is going to be a winning lane, or it's going to be at least useful, but it looked kind of useless most games. And then the only time that their bot lane looked strong was, like you said, when they played Kalista, Blitzcrank, and they were trying to flash on them a lot. But the whole double kill they got in top lane that actually led to them getting ahead was just a mistake by Reckless and Hylissang, I think.
Yes.
It was not like them making a play. So it felt like they weren't proactive at all. Like Inspired was playing set and stuff a lot of the games, but he wasn't actually making much happen. you look at Jankos on set, right? This guy will just take a red and just gank every single fucking lane and just flash on you everywhere and force something. But felt like Rogue wasn't forcing that lot. And Fnatic was just outscaling them in most of the drafts. And in team fights, I mean, if you saw the team fights, like they would get a pick and then they'd all split up and die. And then like Larson would get hit by like a thresh hook, like a complete 5v5 in River, you're on Dragon and a thresh hook hits your main carry out of nowhere. It's like, what the fuck's going on? How is no one blocking this? How is even Larson getting hit by this? It just looked like such an off.
The Rogue team fighting was shit, let's be fair. Because as you say, like they put their main carry on Azir and he's just getting fucking wrecked 1v1 by some of the players on Fnatic. Like, where's the peel? What the fuck is this?
And Vander was right next to him, so he could have even tried to block it, but everything kind of looked all over the place from Rogue, in team fights and stuff. So
I mean, I love the strategy that Fnatic came into this game with. Like, okay, so Larson, we discussed how impressive his summer split was, how much he's carrying this team. Let him have the Azir, but we'll shut him down in the laning phase, which then puts the onus on someone else to carry. Okay, so what are they doing in the top lane? All right, Finn's playing Renekton and Gangplank. Whippo's just playing ranged. He plays the Urgot, which is going to be fine into the Renekton. He's playing Ornn, so he's basically playing a bunch of champs that can still farm and survive within that top lane, but it puts the pressure onto Finn in order to really carry these games. And simultaneously, Selfmade's out there playing the actual AP champs with the AD top and mid and AD carry, right? And so he's the one who's farming up. And I was surprised. Like, I think Evelyn's very strong right now, situationally, because she's a very strong pick champ if you can actually get into position. But when they're pushed in the entire time in the mid lane, it makes it a lot easier for Eve to get in and kind of 1v1 the enemy jungler or take advantage of those scenarios where she can enjoy the strong skirmishing and get a lot of information. And the other side, bring back the Karthus again, allowing Selfmade to farm and carry on these champs. I just think their game plan was good.
I think if you look at the champs they played, it's quite two different ones. So you have Karthus and Evelyn. Obviously, they planned this whole thing out. Lucian mid, AP jungle.
Yes.
Maybe they had Tristana and mid in their pocket as well in case Lucian was banned out or something. But the concept is good. Just the reason it's not being played by many teams, the Karthus mainly, is Karthus is just a clearing champ. It can't contest river. It can't fight for Drakes early. It can't gank. It's just a farmer. Whereas Evelyn is a bit different in the way that she farms just as fast as Karthus, but she can be useful in pushing out waves. She can, as soon as she hits 6, she can gank you through lane. She can gank you through river. She can dive you. So I think Evelyn is slightly different, but the whole idea of Lucian Karthus in shutting down Larson is the most important. Because if Lucian takes one good trade and Karthus comes down, Larson's dead. So Larson has to play really far back and he has to catch the waves. And when you have Inspired on an early game jungler like Set, if your mid laner is catching on the tower constantly because he's scared of getting all in, and you're playing Set and the enemy jungle is just power farming, you're just a bit lost. You don't really know what to do on the map. You can try and dive side lanes, but you're always scared of Karthus ult. You're always scared of Lucian moving first. So their game plan was really suited against Rogue's sort of team fight prowess that they always draft, these huge team fight champs, Gangplank or on Azir, all this stuff. But I think that going forwards, it's not going to be that great. I think the Evelyn is definitely going to be great. I think Evelyn is mega strong right now. And you saw it in LPL playoffs. Like Kanavi just picks Evelyn, just carries the entire game. The Karthus I'm not too sold on. I think versus a team like G2, if they draft against G2 next weekend, Jankos is going to take 3 towers in like the first 10 minutes and Karthus is going to be behind. So I think it was well suited against Rogue, but I'm not sold on it just yet. Just the Evelyn is good, I think.
Well, that's why to me, people like who are now trying to make it that it was always obvious Fnatic were better. It's like Rogue were the best team fighting team in the whole league. Like not just good in the city, like they were the best in the whole league. Like the draft you're just describing here, Caedrel, that loses in the regular split against them because they would just have the fucking Azir, they'd control all the dragon fights. You can't go in, they would just win. You'd never even get a chance to play the game. So like, mad props to Fnatic for having the balls to pull these drafts out. Actually, looked like they would just fucking go.
I agree. This like my read on this series is like it's all or nothing for Fnatic. Like there's an alternate universe where Fnatic had absolutely shit on 3-0 here by Rogue because they can't execute on these skirmishes. And an important thing about the Evelyn and Karthus too is that I agree with you that they play very differently in terms of pressure when you're trying to be aggressive, right? Like you're not going to, the Karthus is not going to be the one tower diving necessarily like the Evelyn is. You're not going to be trying to contest the enemy jungler like the Evelyn is. But one thing that they do function very similarly is that it makes diving if you are Rogue. So if you're trying to be aggressive and you're trying to tower dive, they function almost exactly the same because anytime you get, so first off, if you get low in a tower dive, the Karthus ult just kills you, right? And it makes it very difficult. But the other thing is, you don't know where the Evelyn is a lot of the time as the enemy team. So if you're trying to set up a play yourself to play aggressively, there is always the possibility that Evelyn just shows up. And Evelyn also, her ult, just like Karthus, is an execute ultimate, right? Like, it is a finisher if you are low and you're trying to make a play, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on those points for sure. The only reason that the Karthus especially is not really played, so like you said, Evelyn can actually contest the jungle, is Dragon meta is like the biggest thing right now. You draft team fights so you can get Drakes, and if you get Drakes, you win the game. So if you can get Dragon Soul by 20, 21 minutes, 22,
Sure.
you've pretty much won the game. I mean, FlyQuest, was it FlyQuest? It was TSM versus GGS yesterday with Infernal Soul. That we throw that game out the window where they had Infernal Soul, lost the game. That was complete grief. That was illegal gameplay, what I saw. But
it was terrible.
the whole Karthus thing it's not great for contesting Drakes, but yeah, I mean, I think if Fnatic went into the game going, okay, let's just play the meta, let's put Azir versus Orianna mid, let's put GP versus Renekton top, they were just gonna get stomped. I think Larson would have taken over the game, pushed in Dove bot with Inspired on set, and if Selfmade was playing like Kha'Zix or something, just farming, and Reckless was on like Ezreal, I think they would really struggle.
But I think that's like an underappreciated part of the draft in this game is that by picking Sejuani and Set, you're trying to make plays, right? But you can't make plays against Karthus and Evelyn. Like, you always have to be thinking in your brain about the counterplay and what it means to try and dive into those junglers, and it becomes very difficult, especially when you don't have mid lane priority because Nemesis is playing this Lucian into the Azir, right?
Well, that's the whole thing. It's after 6 that these threats come in, so you need to make plays 1 to 5. And on the Sejuani, I think they completely ran it down when they went for the top dive. Like, they've both split onto 2 different targets. I don't know if you remember, it was Renekton, Sejuani into Evelyn.
Yep.
I can't remember what the top lane was, but they split up.
Urgot.
Yeah.
It is hard to kill that Urgot under turret, though.
Yeah, but
also,
when they saw
played
Inspired, when they saw Inspired, they could have killed him. But losing 2v2 at minute 4 with Sejuani Renekton is completely legal. If they have Urgot Evelyn and they're scaling, and you lose 2v2 at 4 minutes and give Evelyn a double kill, then you've already much kind of set the state of the game. Like, Sejuani needs to get plays off early. She needs to like maybe look for dives, get someone's flash, because once you get someone's flash, it becomes a pressure point, right? So let's say he ganks top, Urgot flashes away. So now in the next sort of 5 minutes of the game, Urgot's going to be calling for help every now and then, and Evelyn just can't help him. She's like, nah, I need to farm. So if Renekton gets ahead and she can like push his advantage into getting kills or tower plates, then Renekton's in a spot where when Evelyn hits 6 and Sejuani is around to cover, Renekton always has to push, and he can even 1v2 if he has to. And if he has 1 lane of prio, then he never has to be scared. And if they keep getting pushed in, it's really hard for Evelyn to be proactive. Evelyn wants to have the pushing lanes and look for dives and look for picks. So you need to get a really good early game advantage against these champs.
Do you think that the Evelyn damage is just too oppressive right now? Because for me, you know, if you get a couple kills on Evelyn, you can one cycle somebody during your charm. Like, you can just 100 to 0 basically anybody.
I think Evelyn is way overtuned. They buffed her Q on 10-16 to half cooldown. So the way Evelyn worked was you could combo someone, ult out, and then you have no cooldowns for like 6 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But now as soon as you ult out and do your full combo, your Q's up again.
Yes.
So you can keep fighting. But I think the main reason that Evelyn is OP right now is I think the AP jungle item is way overtuned. Like,
Runic
the stats
Echoes.
that it gives, the stats that it gives for the amount of gold, it's just so overpowered once you get this item. It's like, it's the most gold efficient item in the game, I think. When you have like Nidalee or Echo, Karthus, Evelyn, when you get that item, you're completely broken. I just think it's way overtuned.
Also, the burst on it with the passive, the Luden's passive, is absolutely crazy.
It's nuts. I mean, Warrior is really strong as well, but I think Runic Echoes is just way too overtuned.
I think you also saw in this series, like, the one player, in my opinion, who never was actually bad in Fnatic was Selfmade. I think he just had no team for half a split, and you see what happens when you're trying to play like fucking supportive junglers with no team. There's nothing you can. It's like just playing solo queue and having the wrong team in it. Like, you have no chance. So, like, you saw, as soon as he actually had some teammates, he was far and away the best jungler in this series. That was always where they had the possible edge, was at the jungle position. Like, Inspired, I have no hate towards him, but he just, I didn't think he was that good even when Rogue was on fire. Like, you're just going along with the party, as it were.
Yeah, I think Selfmade is pretty fucking good on carries. He's the kind of, he has the personality for it as well, you know. He's the kind of guy who's like, his coach will say, oh, let's pick Sejuani, and he'll say, no, fuck off, let's pick Kha'Zix, and then he'll be the, because I mean, if you look at his stats, right, he has the most damage most out of every jungler for like, I think he's like 5 to 6% ahead of everyone, because everyone, when the meta came for Set Sejuani, everyone slipped into it. And then I think Selfmade played like 2 games of Set, and both games he was running it down, going like 0-5, and then he just goes back to his carries and plays really well again. So I don't know if it was a meta shift, which he was going to go anti-meta on it, but I think he's always been, even in solo queue, the carry jungle kind of player.
The only problem I have is this, right? Anyone who wants to get hyped by the Fnatic side, like, first of all, there's one good reason to. You qualified for Worlds, the worst you can come's top 3. These are all positives with how the rest of the split went. Here's the bad news. Your solo lanes are going to get their fucking ever-loving shit pushed in this next series. Like, this is going to be bad. Because, like, that's the one area I cannot believe in Fnatic in this G2 series. Like, the G2 solos, like, I said this 3 weeks ago, they look fucking amazing.
And also, you know, forget even the rest of the LEC playoffs. Think about how Fnatic is going to do at Worlds with those solo lanes. Because here's the thing. I promise you that this strategy that worked this one time against Rogue is not going to work against top teams at the World Championship. Like, this is credit to Fnatic that they shored up their weaknesses so effectively during this series. But now that everybody's seen it, you can only pull this magic trick off once.
Good luck taking this particular team and then playing against like top esports, where Knight has probably won on, I think, 15 different champions this split or something, and just like his most picked champion was 6 times. Like this, you've got 1 pick so far for your player.
Yeah, or like Showmaker, right? Like, I don't think he's too great.
It's not the right time for this meta for Nemesis, unfortunately.
That guy is so good. But I think something that's actually really interesting, I was looking at the 10.17 sort of patch notes. Evelyn's getting nerfed, Hecarim's getting nerfed, Caitlyn's getting nerfed, so I think the meta is going to change a lot. So this whole Evelyn pick will work for playoffs, but I think when it comes to Worlds, Evelyn's out, Hecarim's out, Caitlyn's out.
The Hecarim nerfs aren't too severe. They're E speed buff nerfs. I think it could still potentially be okay.
Yeah, it depends on how the meta shifts, because the thing is Saya and Kai'Sa are getting buffed, which are 2 huge team fighters, so
that's true.
The buffs are not mega big, but they're pretty big. Like AD scaling is always good, base AD is always good, base damage is always good on ADs, so I think if these ADs come back, I think Perks is gonna really benefit. Yeah. So it's gonna be a pretty good meta for EU, hopefully. Because I think LPL and LCK have always played these like Nidalee Graves, Evelyn, Echo, Carter stuff. Whereas EU is really liked Set, Sejuani, Lee Sin, Olaf kind of. They've liked these single target early game high tempo junglers, and then LPL and LCK have always liked these sort of level 6 spiking, jungle item spiking, farming junglers. So if the meta shifts more towards early game and like forcing plays and stuff, I think EU is always going to be stronger. But if it keeps going towards this farming style, then it might become more difficult, because there's not many EU junglers who play Nidalee. I don't think there's even been a single Nidalee game in playoffs yet, so I can't even think of a player who will pick it, because you really need good solo lanes to draft it. You need like a Set mid or like a Renekton top or something. So you need to. I mean, we saw it in NA with Spica and Honza, right? Or Spica and Broken Blade, sorry.
Yes.
So I think it is quite powerful. They actually managed to pull it off with those 2 champs 2 games in a row. Just EU just hasn't adapted to it yet.
I mean, technically they did pull it off 2 games in a row, but I don't think that last game is a shining example. Okay, that last game was
They
pulled it off 1 game. Let's put it that way. And they did do it well that 1 game. Not to take it away from them, but the second game was. Let's just say that wasn't the reason they won.
If anyone wants to see, can you play Nidalee well? Just go watch Peanut in the LPL on LGD, right? Like, because when he goes off, he fucking just carries the whole game.
Yeah, so I was watching the LPL playoffs.
People who are speaking Chinese, for fuck's sake, so mad props to him.
Nidalee is perma-banned in playoffs from now on. Like, every single game I've seen, it's completely banned. Graves as well, so it's weird, because EU, no one picks Graves or Nidalee. In NA, they pick a little bit of Graves and Nidalee, but yeah, Europe, no one plays it. Like, no one thinks it's good. Everyone thinks it's just terrible. I don't know.
Yes.
So it's a bit weird. I don't know if we're the ones who are ahead or they're the ones who are ahead, but I mean, we'll find out at Worlds.
It's just a different vision of the game.
I agree.
You know?
I think Nidalee is so dependent on follow-up that if you don't have a team, you have to just, everybody has to go in when the Nidalee goes in, otherwise you die. So I mean, I don't think it's necessary to play the Nidalee, but I do think that you have to have a specific style if you're going to play as a team around the Nidalee. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you need like these 80 solo laners, similar to another AP jungler, right? But the difference that you can't play Nidalee Lucian. Like, this doesn't really work. There's no CC, there's no engage. You need like Ornn Nidalee, Renekton Nidalee, Set Nidalee, Camille Nidalee. You need like follow-up that goes in.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Lucian and Tristana with Nidalee just doesn't work as well as Karthus and Evelyn.
So after watching the Fnatic games, do you have any hope that they're I mean, we did downplay them before, so keep that in mind, but do you have any hope that they can actually do more in these playoffs, or is this their one shining moment that they're going to have and it's going to be struggle street from here on out?
Well, I would think G2 is going to murder them.
Yes. think that's
for
very
sure.
fair.
But going further into playoffs, into the losers bracket, I guess they're gonna maybe they'll face Rogue again now. They're best of 5 if Rogue gets their shit together.
I don't think they can beat Mad Lions with this kind of strategy. This is only a strategy that's going to be effective against Rogue, right?
I would presume so, because Mad Lions is so much more flexible in terms of like mid jungle picks. They pick like TF, Galio, they can pick stuff like this into Lucian or whatever. So they're not just gonna pick mages. Like Larson, granted he is one of the best mids we have, but he only plays mages. You can't put this
Yes.
guy on. It doesn't look. I mean, he
Yeah.
hasn't played a single game of TF, Galio, or anything like this. So I mean, Humanoid will just pick TF and just ult bots while your Lucian is just getting the push. So
And
I
there's
think Mad Lions would definitely stand up better against him.
jungle mismatch there. It's way more even,
And-
I think.
Yeah, I think this is a lot more even. Shadow is really good on Lee Sin, and he's always good at keeping up and never falling behind. So I don't know if this is just a one-off for Fnatic. I'm gonna say probably is. I think once they lose the G2, which I'm expecting just a 3-0 from G2 because they're looking so fucking good. When it comes to the losers bracket, I think Fnatic will be the 4th seed.
I'm
Because
just
I think
grateful that there are 4
will matter.
seeds because, I mean, I don't really want to exist in a universe where Mad Lions and Rogue don't also go to Worlds, which I think would be pretty lame considering.
Depends if that Rogue's going to turn up. I'm happy
Oh, yeah,
fucking
sure.
leaving them at home.
Sure.
If the real Rogue turns up, I'm with you on it. It'd be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. If this Rogue shows up, but I mean, with the teams remaining, we have to, it's possible that Schalke actually makes it as well. And I do want to start talking about that series a little bit because first off, I was surprised that Schalke won. In our last episode, we were talking a lot about how this is probably the end of the Schalke dream. I loved the fact that SK was playing to their strengths and tried to do the lane swap with Jinx in game 1 to see if they could get Crown Shot into a position to carry. Unfortunately, really didn't work out well.
He had some issues that series, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't too impressed with Zazie and Trick over the course of that series.
Zazzy's in rookie, come on, man. He just
Yeah.
shit the bed. It's just obvious. And like,
Yeah.
I don't even hate on him. It's just his first chance. He shit the bed. Okay, it happens.
Yeah.
I think both solo lanes were choking a bit.
Yeah. So, and it was, Genax's first time in a playoffs in top lane. So clearly, some issues here on this roster, but credit to them that they came up with some strategies that I think would mitigate those issues, right? Like by having that lane swap, you are intentionally trying to get your best player ahead on a hyper carry, right? And you're kind of minimizing the advantage that maybe Odo Omne could have had in that top lane. You're trying to mix it up a little bit. You've got the Ziggs in the mid lane to have strong wave clear and play safely. So I think they're, in spite of losing that game, and they did lose it relatively quickly too, in only 25 minutes, I really thought it was a great plan, truly.
I mean, the plan makes sense just based on the fact of Senna. I think they knew going into the series that Schalke would play Senna because they play it so much. They first rotate Senna and they go Senna time Genji all the time. But level 1 to 5, Senna's wave clear is atrocious, so she can't push waves, and her tower hits are like 30 damage per auto. So if you just swap the lanes and put Jinx top, she can one-shot the wave and hit the tower way before Senna can push.
Yep.
She has the passive to hit the towers with double the damage that Senna does. So the whole lane swap thing is just based on Senna, I think. Rogue really likes doing it as well. I mean, I think loads of teams doing it in scrims against Senna as well. So it's like a good strategy. The best part of the strategy is if you have Sion as well, obviously. So he can like die and clear the wave. So they had Volibear, and I think Genax made so many mistakes in the lane swap. He was like, but I think Schalke reacted so well to the lane swap. They had no idea it was coming, and boom, Odo Amne was on it, like straight on it. He was instantly
Helps
running
that
bots.
he played during the lane swap era, right? And
Yeah,
I think I do think that that's probably part of the flaw in this plan is that Genax being his first season on a top laner, like forget not having played in like 2014, 2015, right? Where Odo Omne was indoctrinated into this style. But you really, if you're SK, you really have to make sure that Genax understands this. And that's hard to do when you haven't historically played top lane and you weren't playing, even if you were historically playing top lane, you weren't playing during that era.
Yeah, he made two big mistakes in the lane swap as far as I can remember. The one was he was helping Trick clear camps, and then he went for a fight onto the enemy jungle, level 1, which made them slow down a lot getting to bot tower. And the second was he tried to catch a huge bot wave alone, just got dove by 3 people and died, and he was just out of the game. So yeah, he made a lot of mistakes in the lane swap. Sure.
But I don't think I would have conceptually done it differently if I was SK, right? I think that was a strong
you could try
decision.
to cover their weaknesses and still have a chance was pretty decent, but they didn't execute it though.
No.
I think their drafts were just terrible, honestly. Like they
Mate,
came
what
into
is Trick's champion pool in this fucking series? This guy, is he aware who he is? Has he been watching his own career? It's like, I won't take the Lee Sin away from him. No, you'll just take Lee Sin and feed on him, you daft shit. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think he played.
What the fuck is this?
His Lilia was really grief as well. Yeah, I don't know.
People have told this guy because he was like an LEC champion. It's like there's only two sets of people in the world. There's the people who are haters, me, who think secretly he was never that good, and then there's the people who think he's just always been good and he's on bad teams. He's such a fucking bad player, mate. Like, yeah, I can acknowledge he has some of the like Korean macro elements of a jungler that makes him competent. Like, I can see why he keeps getting jobs, but I've never thought this was a good jungler.
I'm not even going to go that far, dude. I wonder why he's even playing when there are probably like several better junglers in EU Masters. Like,
yeah.
why even bother with the import slot here? Seriously.
I suppose it's just experience because we have one player who's brand new to the LEC and one who's just role swapped. So if you throw in a rookie in jungle as well, they might all just fall apart. So I guess Trick's there for guidance. I think that's the only reason I can come up with.
His teammates seem to like him for whatever reason, so fair enough.
But I do agree with Thorin. Like picking Lee Sin and Lilia in the series was complete troll.
Why is he doing it?
Just
the rest of the Monty was explaining makes a lot of sense. But if you just did different jungle picks, they might be able to do something. Like this guy was always going to feed on these champions. Come on.
They had like no playmaking. They had full scaling. They had no engage every single draft, and it was just like, can you really win with this? With like Ziggs, Jinx, Morgana or something? Is that really going to happen? Lilia as well. Like, where's your front line?
When you say earlier, like about their draft, I get the premise of like these guys are rookies, inexperienced. Like, what could go wrong on Ziggs? The problem with that is it's like this is like way worse than any of the drafts I saw. This was literally just like they also looked at the rest of the split and they were like, Crown Shot pretty much wins every game for us, doesn't he? Like, just put everything into Crown Shot, and if he fails, then we lose the series. It's like, how's that fair?
So
I do a team.
I do
have other players in the team.
I do.
Tell you what, if you all give him 80% of your paycheck, fair enough, we can play like that. But I'm sick and tired of seeing motherfuckers get all the weight on their shoulders, still get paid similar paycheck to the others, and at the end, when you win, everyone go, "Come on, team, we all did it." So fuck you, you didn't do anything. You sat and watched him fucking just carry on Ezreal after the split. You can't.
I do think
it's his fault, is it? Yeah,
I do think that there was logic behind like the Syndra Ziggs picks for Zazie. Because these are, look, I hate Ziggs. I hate Ziggs as a champion. He is the ultimate, like, brain dead, no skill, wave
just an
clear.
anti-fun champion, isn't it? Yeah,
he is
shouldn't exist.
Terribly designed that he is like the worst shit ever in pro games. And I remember going back to one of my least favorite teams of all time, which was SK Telecom T1S, and having to watch EasyHoon wave clear on this champion for like 50 minutes every single game. And all, like, I get why he's picked with champions.
All CS records involving Ziggs should be removed. They shouldn't even.
It's true, actually. It's true. They have to remove them all.
I agree.
That's like the ADTs who were like, I had the most damage after all the Cogmore games. Like, go fuck yourself. Like, it's not even real. You just cheated for that.
It's true. All CS records should be removed because of Ziggs. But when you're trying to, if you're a coach, like you, credit to Jesus here, because you have to do something with the resources that you have.
Notorious fucking Ziggs abuser himself back in the day, so he
That's
knows.
True. That's true. That's very true. He knows. He knows. He is a Ziggs abuser.
There you go.
So, but all you do on Ziggs is throw out Qs and then hope that the Jinx like can land a crit and start like trigger the passive to start going crazy if you're Crown Shot. Or, if you're the Syndra, I'm going to land a long-range stun and then hope that Crown Shot and with Yuumi on him on the Ezreal can finish it off with like a WQ auto combo, right? And so I understand the logic of what they're doing, which is why it's very hard for me to fault SK's coaching staff in this series. But it's depressing. Like, it's depressing that this is what it came to in the end, that we have to have these, dirty Ziggs abusers. And Ziggs is just, he's a skill mask, right? Like he effectively hides your lack of skill, and he's also a lack of macro mask, right? He fixes all of your macro problems because if you fuck up on wave management, you just throw a Ziggs ult into that lane and it just fixes your problem.
Yeah, it's similar to Malzahar, but in a different way.
Yeah, but he could do it across the map, dude.
Yeah, it's true. But I don't know, they drafted Ziggs, Jinx, Morgana, Lilia, and I just don't understand how any of this fits well together. I mean, if you hit like the Lilia ball and then you
Yes,
can sleep
that's
them,
why.
and then Ziggs ult
That's
hits them, and the Jinx
100%.
rocket hits them, but it sounds like something from a fucking ARAM like that comp. I don't know.
Yeah. So I promise you that the logic there was exactly what you say, is that Ziggs and Lilia poke somebody from off screen, and then here comes Crown Shot with, you know, shooting a rocket at them, getting a crit, and then killing the entire enemy team. It's dumb. And is it likely to work? No, but it could work, right?
That's good work. I don't know how they came up with that, honestly. I don't know how they came up with it.
And also that second game draft where he's on Cogmore with a similar type of comment. It's like, is this like punishment? Has he done something wrong or something? Why would any professional player have to experience that?
I don't know. He had like no front line the whole series, and he's playing hyper carries. I just didn't understand it.
He's just playing a champion where it's like, good luck. If they catch you, you just fucked, mate. See ya.
Yeah, I don't know. That's really crazy.
Meanwhile, Ezreal just available the whole draft, of course, no bans, nothing. So
well, they
just
also
give him
lost with
Cogmore.
Ezreal, so you know, whatever. Anyway, I was disappointed in that series, but I guess the Schalke narrative is exciting, I guess.
Oh, props to Schalke, yeah. Schalke played like bosses. I even think, actually, those drafts, by the way, Monty, suggest that despite what Crownshot was telling me on the Crackdown, I don't think they came into that series thinking they were favourites. Those drafts suggest they knew that they had to do some weird shit.
Yes,
like,
100%.
I think even they were buying the Schalke hype. Like, everyone just believes it now. That's the thing. It's also become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, they definitely have, particularly Gilius, like played way above the rim of what you expect and had all these crazy games. But now it's almost like the opponent expects them to do that and it's just waiting to get wrecked as well.
Look,
that's like starting to become a real thing. There's an aura about them.
All you have to know is that
true,
no one intentionally plays Ziggs and then lane swaps with Jinx if they think there's another way they can win that game.
They just bring back season 3. I don't know.
No one does that.
And I will say, by the way, bearing in mind, I sadly on most of these shows, I've always had to be the person who sort of like deflates the hype around Gilius, because I always say the problem with Gilius is if you had like this, best example would be if you had Gilius, if you had self-made skills and then Gilius's persona, you'd be literally the biggest player in the West. Like the trash talk would be so epic, it would work, you'd be doing the shit in the game, you'd be so popular. A lot of people would hate you, but you'd be like so like divisive, you'd be like the ultimate character, right? The problem always was Gilius had like the fucking Gilius persona and then like your skill set, Caedrel. It was just like a normal, boring jungler. Just like, just does the right thing. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
it was nothing flashy. He just did the right
thing. If you're saying I'm as good as Gilius and he's in almost 4th place, then I must be
a lot of people might believe that. But anyway, the point is though,
I just came on here to get flamed. What is this?
I didn't flame you technically. I just said you were the old Gilius.
Hey,
but
all I'm saying is there's
the
a reason.
Old Gilius?
There's a reason.
Not even the new one?
You roll swapped, right? There's a reason you roll swapped.
Yeah, but I'm getting flamed for being jungle, not a bit anyway.
No, but the difference is though, now actually Gilius's game actually matches the trash talk. Like when he actually trash talked the fucking Limit player on Twitter and said before the series, like quick 3-0 and you'll shut your mouth or something. Like that actually is funny then when you pull it off. Props Gilius, you've actually figured out trash talk now, mate. When you can then actually do it, now there's actually a threat behind your words now. Now that's actually cool. Like now we're gonna look what you see for the next series. Now the story can begin. Everyone else thinks it began years ago. Now it can actually begin. Now he's actually legit.
Yeah.
As a jungler, what's your take on Gilius's performance? Because clearly this is surprising to many people. If you had taken me back a year ago and you said, guess what? Schalke is going to start with a massive losing record. You know, they start the year with having Forgiven on this roster who literally gives up on the entire team. And then you have to have Neon come in at AD carry. And then things start to go really badly in summer. They lose almost all their games. They sub in Gilius, and then they go on a miracle run, beating everybody and are now in contention to go to Worlds. That sounds fucking insane.
By the way, just as an aside, just to be absolutely as fair and technically correct as we can be, technically what Forgiven said was actually proven correct. Because when he announced that, what he was also announcing, and this wasn't very clear, was that he was being benched, but then he'd have to compete for his spot and he could maybe get his spot back or something, but he wasn't being kicked, right? He actually chose to leave and therefore just basically tanked his contract and was just going to get paid out and just leave out the back door. Well, technically what he said was that Schalke wasn't willing to make the moves necessary to improve. So if they weren't willing to just outright kick him entirely and get Neon to replace him. And technically he was correct. So in the end, forgive him was right, but he just didn't think it through. He just didn't know. See, that's why you got to be very precise.
Sorry, what?
You're
making me dizzy there.
Run it back. It all makes sense. Run it back. It all makes sense.
I mean, I don't know. When we were facing Schalke in week 7, the second to last week, and we were on like a 4-win streak or something. So because we were also reverse sweeping like the second half of the split, we went 0-4 in the first week, and then in the first 2 weeks, and then after the split break, we were winning every game out of nowhere. We beat G2, we beat like SK again, we beat Misfits. We were like on a huge win streak, and then we came against Schalke, and they were like 4-8 or something, 5-8, and we were like, okay, this is gonna be a free win. But the last 2 games, Gilius went 10-0. We were like, it's a bit weird. And then he picked Sejuani in our series, and I think our draft was really good. We drafted super well against him, but I don't know, we just lost. And everyone was like, what the fuck just happened?
Gilius died twice in this entire series in 3 games. Like, he has been very impressive. I think part of that...
the playoff series, you mean?
Yeah, in the playoff series.
All right. Oh, okay.
I mean, I think Abadage has been doing significantly better as well, which certainly helps, because if Abadage continues to play like he did early in the split, then Gilius doesn't have time to farm up on champs like Hecarim and start to carry these games, right? So it's not like he's doing this in isolation.
Yeah, I think it feels kind of... I mean, from what I can see, at least from their series against SK, it's like Odoamne can carry games just by his raw skill. Like, he's experienced, he knows how to win games, and he doesn't ever lose his lane. So they have like that rock in Odoamne who's always performing. And then Neon has like stepped it up so much throughout the last couple of weeks. He came in as like a replacement for Inax, like moving up from academy to see if this works, like trying another formula. But actually, he's been playing fucking good. I think Ezreal, Senna, whatever it is, he's been fitting into the team really well. And him and Dreams have been playing way better than Nuzlocke and Inax have been doing. They've been impacting the map so much. And then, like Abadage, as you said, I mean, even Perk said it, right? It's like Faker Dage. I don't know. This guy is like... Yeah,
basically, everyone in the team is literally playing way better.
Yeah,
I mean, as you said,
better, so...
even Dreams is like the sleeper fucking carrying half these fucking fights. Like, he's doing a lot of shit.
I mean, if you watch the series between SK and Schalke, Dreams was like 0-5, 0-6. But if you look into it deeper, every single one of his deaths is like beneficial grief. He's like going in on purpose to int it to make a good fight, but I think people don't realize that he's actually inting on purpose, and it's actually
these are sacrificial moves. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's doing really well, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So what's your read on Schalke? Are they actually going to be going to Worlds?
Could they make the run to the final?
If you look at the stats of Schalke, everyone had 2 deaths on their team apart from Dreams, who had 12 in that playoff series. Could they go to the finals?
Because the Mad Lions game is going to be really different, right? You know, I see it as very difficult for Schalke to get through Mad Lions, because a lot of the success that I've seen from Gilius is the fact that he has been able to kind of farm up on these carries, and I don't think it's going to be possible. Like, Shadow's not just going to let him get away with that, right?
I think, I mean, when I watched Mad versus G2, even though Mad was losing every single game, it felt like, apart from the first game when they just got completely stomped, there was like signs of, like, they were actually doing pretty well. You know, they were actually matching G2's playstyle. They were fighting back. They were having gold leads, throwing it here and there. They were winning team fights. So it's almost like Mad was kind of putting up a fight against G2, but they just could never win. So I think if Mad loses to Schalke and Schalke wins that series, like convincingly, like 3-0, 3-1, I think I would say that Schalke could make the finals for sure. But it all comes down to the Mad series for me, because I think Mad is like, they kind of have a wake-up call now, right? If you lose best of 5, you're not going to Worlds. But if you win it, you can go to Worlds. So it's going to be Mad at their peak form, hopefully, like their full try-hard mode. And if they beat Mad with Schalke beats Mad, I think Schalke will probably go to the finals, actually, yeah.
Well, it's also true that during that series, Shadow was struggling in some of those games. I mean, I think they were lucky. Yeah, I think, like, you know, they were lucky to even make game 2 close. Like, that was the closest game of the series, but given the way that Mad Lions were playing in the early game, they were lucky to even have a shot at winning that one, in my opinion.
But the thing is, if you look at Shadow, it's like he has like 10 games of lease in this split. He doesn't play Set. He plays Volibear, but Volibear's nerfed. He plays Hecarim, obviously it's a little bit buffed, but you need a draft around it. And then that's it. He plays Trundle, but that's kind of out of the meta as well. So his champion pool is really, really small. He doesn't play a single game of Sejuani in the last year or 2. I don't
what
think
else
he
would
plays,
you guess he goes to in this series if they ban him out?
I'm not sure. From solo queue, from what I've seen in solo queue, he plays like a little bit of Kindred in Italy. like LPL kind of champions, but he's never really shown it throughout the whole year in LEC. The only carry jungle he's ever played is Lee Sin and a couple Hecarim games. That's literally it. He doesn't play set. He's never played set. He can't play Volibear anymore. It's too nerfed. It's not that strong anymore. I just think when G2 banned Lee Sin every game, he just looked so dizzy. Like he tried Hecarim, didn't work. Tried it again, didn't work again, and I don't know. He was really struggling with the Lee Sin, but I think.
Yeah, if you actually look in his
now.
entire career, it's absurd how many Lee Sin games he's played. It's just basically because the joke is, even when it isn't the best champion, like you just pick it every time there's split if it was available. Yeah. He smurfed on it, didn't he? So I get it, but you are correct. Like when you come to big best of 5 series, people are going to at least experiment with banning it against you one game or two, make you see if you can play something else.
Yeah, loads of champs like he played last split. I'm looking at it now, like Elise, Jarvan, Rek'Sai, Karthus, they're really not meta. These champs kind of suck. It's like Gragas also out.
You think we'll see him on the Lilia?
Yeah, I mean, he played the Lilia a couple of games in the. I think he played it 2 times versus G2. One it looked really good, one it looked pretty shit. But I think if Schalke kind of draft around Lilia, Lee Sin, I'm really not sure what he's going to play. I think he's going to try him first time like Kindred, Nidalee on stage. Other than that, I think he can try the Hecarim again, but it didn't look that good. He was just like AFK farming and then did nothing.
Yeah.
12
of his 18 games in the summer split were on either Lee Sin or Volibear. 8 on Lee Sin, 4 on Volibear. 3 of the remaining ones were on Trundle, and he had 1 each on Ivern, which fuck that game. Hecarim and Gragas. And we did see a little bit of Gragas in LCS. Cloud9 played it, but not exactly a meta pick right now for sure.
Maybe he's practicing Evelynn. Maybe they can try bust it out. I mean, I saw Humanoid playing Lucian in solo queue, so I wouldn't be surprised if they are the ones like copying Fnatic and going Lucian Evelynn or something, because Karthus could work as well, and he plays a bit of Karthus. But I think since the meta got shifted towards like early game junglers / these random farming junglers, then he just kind of fell off a bit, especially towards the end of the split, because the start of the split, Volibear was really OP, so he had Lee Sin Volibear no matter what in his pocket. And Trundle as well was also in his pocket, because those 3 champs were like S+ tier. But now, yeah, obviously, like I said, Volibear and Trundle are out. And if you drop a Lee Sin ban, it's like he's on his A tier champions almost, or B tier. So, yeah.
I have a question. Right now, with the current set of patches that are out, how influential do you think jungle should actually be to the playoffs? Because earlier on, a lot of people thought like, all the carry junglers, that like you'd have all this like dominance from the jungle. But I've seen in a bunch of the regions, like, and it is probably the most ridiculous. You had all these top teams that didn't even have a good jungler. Like some of the best junglers were in the burst teams. So where is jungle at right now, do you think, right at the moment, in terms of where it's balanced in terms of the roles and the meta?
I think jungle is, on certain champions, it's really fucking broken. On certain champions, it's average. I think if you look at the whole of Summer Split, if you had Volibear on your team, you had a fucking broken jungler. If you had Set on your team, you had a fucking broken jungler. And then after that, you had like average champion. I think it's all down to picks kind of right now, jungle. And now looking at jungle in the current state right now, if you have Evelynn on your team, you have a fucking broken jungler. And Hecarim as well. And Set, those are the 3 really broken ones. Barring those 3, you have like an average jungler, unless it fits into your comp like really well. Like, I don't know, like Jarvan Orianna into like an Ashe. Then you obviously jungle has a lot of impact. But in terms of just stale meta picks, it's not those 3. I think jungle has like an average impact. You can pick like an early game champ. You can pick like a Sejuani to help your melee champs. But I think in terms of carrying games, I think jungle is those 3 champions right now. Maybe like a good Kha'Zix or a Lee Sin player. You could pick those. I think those always have been sort of meta for like the last 5 years. You can just pick them randomly, especially Lee Sin. If you're just really good at it, just pick it. But there are a couple of champs in LPL, like Kindred's having a really high win rate out of nowhere. So maybe this weekend some EU teams try it. But I would say jungle is pretty. It's average, like above average in terms of strength. I think it's pretty strong.
What's your take on the Lilia jungle that's going on right now? Because she seems like a pretty powerful champ at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure. When we played our last weekend of LEC, Lilia everyone thought it was shit. So no one was playing it, no one was scrimming with it. And then obviously I stopped scrimming, so I've been asking pro players over the last 2 weeks, how's Lilia? Are you scrimming with it? Is it good? And everyone's saying that it's really strong. Like 4 or 5 teams have told me Lilia is a really, really strong champ, and people first pick it. It's like fast clearing, you can cheese on it so easy. Like, and level 1s are really common nowadays. I think people kind of woke up with level 1s. You can like walk in with Lilia level 1, take their raptors, smite it, and then go to his red and kill him. So there's so many different level 1s you can do. You can do like raptors to his raptors and kill him on his red and stuff. I don't know, with the level 1s coming back and Lilia having so much impact on the map early, as well as scaling really well, I think Lilia is quite strong. I think I would add that to the pool of broken junglers. Actually, you're right. I think Evelynn, Lilia, Hecarim, and Set are the top 4 for sure.
What's interesting to me about Lilia as well is because she's so fast, like you can actually invade pretty freely, and you're either taking camps or you're getting information on where the enemy jungler is, and that punishing her is really hard because of how easily she could just get out. So it does seem like, just purely from a professional information game way of thinking, that she would be strong.
I think there's a risk tendency to Lydia as well, though. I think that if you fall behind on this champ, you're completely fucking useless from what I've seen. If you die like level 1 to 5, or you get caught and you're against like a Nocturne or a Kha'Zix or a Hecarim, if you ever walk into river and they just run at you, you're just dead and there's no counterplay. So it's like a very mistake-dependent champ. I think if you're very consistently good at getting leads and you don't fall behind, then Lilia's a really good champ for you. If you can get a steady lead on this champ to like level 7 or 8 and get your jungle item, you're set to go for the rest of the game. But if you fall behind like a level and you don't get your jungle item as fast and you give up the first dragon and maybe lost a couple camps, then this champion is going to be super useless for your team.
So more high risk for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But there's a lot of reward to it, I think, with like the build it has is like Liandry's, Rylai's, Rabadon's, and those 3 items scale to infinity kind of. So it's not like a champ like Nidalee where you get Rod of Ages and Athenes and then you're strong and then you're weak again, but then you get Rabadon's, you're strong again, then you're weak again. So Lilia kind of scales exponentially almost.
Let's talk a little bit about G2, because we spent some time on Mad Lions, but this is a team that we thought coming into the playoffs had improved dramatically, gotten back into form. Hard to bet against them in best of 5 scenarios, considering they've lost 2 best of 5s in the last 2 years of play.
Doesn't help when technically the 2 best teams in the league just straight up lose immediately. That doesn't really give you any hype for the rest of LEC playoffs, does it? Like,
yeah,
who's supposed to Mad Lions and Rogue? We're going to challenge these fuckers.
I guess we just have to believe in Schalke now. I guess that's the only choice that we have, the miracle run. But I mean, Caps has been playing absolutely out of his mind so far in the last few weeks of the split and now into the playoffs. I do think that the series overall between G2 and Mad was pretty fun and compelling to watch. But again, we're just seeing the kind of crazy diversity that G2 has in terms of their play styles and champion pools, coming back with Aurelia, which is a pick that we haven't really seen very much in other regions recently. Now we're seeing the Nico in the top lane as well, which Wonder is playing very well. And it just seems like it's impossible to prep against these guys.
Yeah, the Nico pick surprised me. They blind pick Shen twice and Gangplank's up and they just pick Nico. It's like Gangplank's known as this notorious counter to Shen. But they always went for this Nico. I mean, some of the games look super strong. There was a game where he got 2 towers top in the first 11 minutes when Shen ulted bot once. So there's always some value to the Nico. And in teamfights, he was really popping off. There was like teamfights where he had like 4-man ults, 3-man ults, and he was really doing good. So the Nico pick, I'm still a bit skeptical on because it's kind of fallen off a bit because it got some nerfs. Like last split, I think it was getting nerfed a little bit. So it's not really been touched since then because there's a lot of counterplay to Nico. If you just stun her, she's absolutely fucked. So, but Runner played super well around it. And I think the Caps thing, I don't know. He's just so fucking good. I don't know what else to say. Like that guy is so good. It's crazy. But I think their jungle support, the Yankos and Mickey, are so good at getting Caps ahead. It's like Caps can get himself ahead, but if they help him out, he just gets like incredibly far ahead in the first 10 minutes. And I don't know, there's like not much counterplay to it. I don't know.
I guarantee you one day in the future, right, this will be one of those weird pieces of trivia that like newer fans will be like, what? When people find out like, oh, you know that Caps guy? Oh, you mean Western Faker? Yeah, that guy was like the most godlike mid laner, all the outplays, greatest highlight package ever. He won Worlds a couple of times, few MSIs, 10 LEC chat. You know, he just switched to AD carry for no reason for once. But oh, was he really good? Nah, he was sort of all right. At the end, he like vaguely got it together. Oh, okay. So why did they do that then? Just for fun. They were just bored. And then they just did it, swapped back, and then they still won anyway. So it didn't matter. Like, what sort of fucked story is that? Like, why are people in LCS, they can't even get like competent players at the normal positions? People are fucking around in Europe like, I might just on the side, just main another role. Ah, it didn't work. Can I have my main back? Thanks. I'll just carry the whole game now 1v9. Like, why are people like this? Why not just do this the whole time? Why not just stay big up the whole time?
You know, Thorin, there was this guy named Michael Jordan who got bored of winning in basketball, so he decided that he needed to switch positions and just hit up baseball for a little bit, try it out. Definitely affected the narrative of his career to a certain degree, right? But also made the comeback even sweeter in many ways.
The Last Dance.
Well, it's also just inexplicable why he did that, right? So who knows?
See,
Yeah, I
obviously,
think the
what he should have done there is done some sort of next level like wordplay with like Aurelia being the blade dancer or whatever. Like this could be his last dance, like whatever. You can cut that one for later. Like, something there. All I'm saying, we'll workshop it. We'll get it with a focus group. We'll be back next week for you with the joke. So here's one I made earlier. Just material.
I think the Caps role swap thing. I don't know if that does more Caps or Perks, because Caps has been to 2 World Championships in a row, and I think he's been to 2 MSI. Did he go to both MSIs?
Yeah, but he only made semis to the other one, yeah.
Yeah, so he's been playing like non-stop for 2 years, literally non-stop, like maybe a month and a half break in total throughout the whole 2 years. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was the one who was like, I fancy playing another role for a split. Like Spring Split's really useless anyway, so he may as well just have fun with it. So they just went for it, and I mean, it's probably good for him because now he looks like he's definitely in form.
I'm not sure that it was necessary for him to get informed to do that. I was going to put that out there.
The thing I actually love about Caps being back in the region is just like even when it wasn't the best pick, Shadow would always pick Lee Sin. Caps can just pick whatever he wants, no matter, even though everyone else thinks like, it's boring. Like, mate, Jizuki literally got benched because the meta in America is like Azir, fucking Orianna, and they were like, it's just not your champion, mate. Caps can just pick whatever the fuck he wants. Like, he can just play anything at this meta. He's just so good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he plays everything, literally everything. It's like this guy can play Akali, Irelia, Zed, Yasuo, all the assassins. He can play mages. He can play like AD mids if you want, like a Lucian there or Tristana.
Trying to draft in this next series for the Nemesis and Mythi. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. There's going to be so many potential counters open.
Another thing that's really annoying about G2 when you say draft is the flexes they have. Like, they can pick like on 1, 2, 3, they can pick like Lucian, Shen, and Syndra, and you have no idea where anything's going. Even if they pick Set as well, and then they pick Nico last pick, you're like, what the hell is going on, honestly? And in spring of last year, that was like really, really, you could see it. It's obvious, they could pick 5 champions, and you'd have maybe one idea of where one of them was going, and that was it. But I think Syndra got nerfed a bit, but Lucian got buffed, so I think G2 is really going to start abusing Lucian probably, because their mid AD are like really good at them, really, really good Lucian players, so yeah, I don't know. This guy, you remember when he played with Vayne mid as well? He can play like Kalista mid, all this stuff. So yeah, he can default to anything. Like the Irelia was probably something he was probably like, I haven't played Irelia in a couple months, but pretty good into Galio or whatever it was. So you can pick it here if you want.
I also just love how the Fnatic win basically has gifted G2 just a free berth into the final, which means that I have no idea who is actually capable of taking them down. Unfortunately, what was looking like a really exciting bracket in LEC after a really close season kind of is boring now. Kind of is boring.
It's just because G2's resurgence, I guess. It's like, okay, G2's really good again. We know it's going to win. Now
also,
it's boring.
Rogue sucking super didn't help this. Right.
Yeah, it's all on Schalke now. You got to make it interesting.
I mean, Mad Lions getting the shit together. Maybe Mad Lions just bounces back and is way better. I don't think they can beat G2, but they can make the final potentially. That's
maybe Rogue or Mad just completely step up and they just win all the way through the losers bracket and just murder G2 in the final somehow. You never know.
Not going to happen. I think this is. I would not be betting against G2 at any point in time for the remainder of these LEC playoffs. But I mean, I'm happy to see it because honestly, the lamest worlds we could have had would be one without G2 back in form, especially the way they ended the summer split and all of their kind of difficulties that they had outside of the game of League of Legends, which was affecting their performance in summer. We want to see this team at Worlds, and we want to see them because we know they can be contenders.
Definitely. I think they're so good at different metas, like farming junglers. Jankos can play Kha'Zix really well. He could probably play Nidalee if he wants to. I'm sure he's got everything that he needs to play. He can play Sejuani. Sleason's been a bit questionable over the last couple of weeks, but I don't know. I just think G2 back at Worlds is going to be for sure our strongest team. It's kind of like sending Goku, it's like you have to send him to that tournament, otherwise it's going to be a bit scary. So yeah, I mean, G2 is definitely, I think they're going to win the finals probably, unless Schalke is insane in some way.
Even the point you just brought up about the fact that, like, arguably they have the best draft in the world, basically. Like, it's the most hard to read. Mate, the LCK teams are going to have a nightmare. Like, they already had one last year when they did, but it's going to be a nightmare for them in the draft, mate, because they are the most obvious country when they do the draft. So, like, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Here's the thing, to be fair, G2 does sometimes 200 IQ themselves in the draft, so that will happen occasionally as well. Like they definitely take the fact that they can flex and sometimes do it way too much, but it's like, just versus Koreans especially, that is mad effective. Like, because normally in the past League of Legends, you were never on the winning side in the draft there, because it was always so obvious what everyone should pick.
I think that they've had these like small picks which have kind of almost won them tournaments, like the Nico, the on-hit Nico, which Wunder was like abusing and so good at. Then he had like the Pike top out of nowhere, which was like carrying games, and like the Kled out of nowhere, which was not really played that much as well. So I don't know. They have like these off-meta picks where you like, oh, Pike's on enemy team that's going support. Let's pick like Rakan or something. It's really good counter to it. And then wait, Pike's going top. What's going on here? So I mean, if they can have those kind of moments when it comes to Worlds, then I think they'll definitely throw LCK teams off, because LCK teams are used to. Feels like Korean meta is like
they have a gentleman's agreement for sure.
Yeah, it feels like the Korean meta, everything has to be in its place. You know, it has to be okay. I'm gonna have like this mid, these are mid lane champs, these are top lane champs, these are jungle champs. End of story. Whereas G2 is like, no, it's like we're gonna fuck that whole idea up. And I mean, you saw that at the last Worlds. But Korea has definitely gotten better at fighting. I think the last couple of years of LCK has been like really surgical League of Legends, whereas now they're just down to fight no matter what, and Chovy is like picking set mid and stuff and just flashing on people level 2. So I think Damwon as well is going to step up a lot when it comes to this Worlds. I think last Worlds they kind of came into the quarterfinals and just got stomped. So yeah,
they had a bunch of new players though. To be fair, like
that was them doing a rogue in that
bot lane was different, right? Damwon in the last Worlds they had.
They didn't have the same AD carry yet. Yes, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And then obviously the support's like the standout player now, which came in,
Yeah, and Dragon X looks good as well. Even though they've had a slump, they have like this new support Keria who's insanely good. Their new jungle Piosik. These are two brand new players this year almost. And Thorin, who was like he was sort of hyped up as like this new amazing top, and then he had like these choke moments and he was crying on stage and he was really running it down a lot, and then he got good moments again in spring and he was running it down a lot. Now he's had good moments in summer, but now he's running it down again. So
I really don't like that guy.
He's had so many ups and downs.
Coming from Europe, we don't look down on people who cry on stage. So that's just part of, what I want to know is that's cultural appropriation. Like, have some respect. You didn't earn that. We established that.
We invented crying on stage.
It was made. Listen, on average, it happens roughly like 1 every 2 years, Monty. It's just one guy doing it, but the average is still there. We still maintain the high average. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Worlds is gonna be really fun at least. I think the only annoying thing about Worlds obviously is there's not gonna be no crowd, so like the hype.
Also
is
the
like
format,
a lot less.
I would say that would. I don't really care about the crowd personally, but I care about the format not being super good.
Is there a different format from last year or something, or is it?
No, that's the problem.
It's the same.
You've identified the problem, Caedrel.
Did they just what was last year's format? I didn't really know it. It was
it's the same as every other time.
Best of one round into a single limb. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it sucks kind of tough. I guess if it sucks, it sucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Splice almost made it out of groups. I mean, they did make it out of groups, but they almost made it out of groups first seed last year, almost beating FPX. That was insane.
That was certainly a result that you might expect in a best of one double.
It was
round
all worth it. You have to know what the game is, because the long game of that was Splice doing that made TSM recruit Corbius. It was all God has a bigger plan, Caedrel. You have to let things play out. For example,
effect.
You might think I'm sad that Fnatic didn't get beaten by Rogue. I am, because it would have been funny that they wouldn't have made Worlds. But then again, I realised, wait a minute, they're going to Worlds? Ooh, tell you what, get the fucking lotion, the popcorn, get anything. Fucking just throw something up, throw some other random items in there. I'm going to have fucking fun, mate. That Worlds is going to be a banger. I can't lose. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God. But TSM, the seed for the NA teams hasn't been locked yet, right? It's not like TSM.
It's either C9 or TSM.
There.
Yeah. So there's 3 seeds.
So no one's like the play-in team yet.
Yeah, 3 seeds.
No one knows yet.
3 seeds are still available for NA. Team Liquid and FlyQuest are locked, but we don't know what order, like which seed they're going to be. Could be anywhere
that is
between 1 and 3.
Potentially for Europe, though. Like the idea that Cloud9 could go, get their shit together, and then be the playing team. That means they can come into a group that like #1 European. It's like that's actually worse for Europe.
Or it's super funny if like Schalke's the 4th seed in play-ins against C9, the best team in NA. Well, it's rather very split, and then Schalke just completely stomped them. Yeah. That would be super funny, I think.
Sure.
Dude, I can't
4th seed from EU stomping the first seed. Well, first seed from NA.
it pains me to say this because I actually do really want Mad Lions to go to Worlds. And the only way, like, I can only have either Mad Lions or Schalke, which sucks, right? But I do kind of want Schalke to go just so that they can get into a group with like the number 1 NA team, beat them, and then it's like the 10th best European team is better than the first LCS team. Purely for narratives. I enjoy these things.
It'll be flying around, yeah.
I'm just going to say this now, because even though it will be considered a hater, even though I'll be a minority of one in the world and you'll all be against me and all think that you're right and the consensus or the hive mind, let's get safe, retweet to the intellectual high ground of only believing what everyone else told me. I'll just say it right now. 1 year from now, less than that, next year, if we're offline again and we're in the studio of the LEC and it's normal League of Legends, this whole Schalke hype won't exist anymore. It won't. If they make it to Worlds, they'll do nothing there. Doesn't even look like they'll necessarily make it. They've got a shot at it at the moment. But half of this is like they're online, they're in their fucking bedroom, like there's no real stage, there's no crowd, like none of these like this lineup of 5 players, these won't be the fucking like top team next split in spring for next year. Like a couple of them are like Odoame has always been good, never basically been bad. It's like his average is just like wherever it is, but his teams are sometimes bad. Abidage, I'm still the jury's massively out on him. He's having a sick little run of form now. Jury's out. What, is Gilius just like got bitten by radioactive spiders? He's transformed, does he now? He's never going back to normal, is he? I think that fucking kettle will simmer right the fuck down when you turn the heat off. And then who's left after that? Neon's a pretty good player. Should be in LEC, but he's not the best AD carry. There's some way better AD carries. And then like Limit's all right. So like that lineup, like they'll be lucky to make playoffs next spring. Mark my words. Put this in a fucking time capsule. Send it to yourself. And then when you're all going, later, when it's at the end of spring next year, like, well, of course, Schalke winner. You're the ones that were hyping them last year, you can't. So I'm just enjoy it now while it lasts. It's all fucking magical, isn't it? But you know what? That carriage turns back into a pumpkin, motherfucker.
So you're saying that Schalke is like the Leicester City of LEC. They get the one run.
I am the guy who's just like, she used to be fat and she's got an eating problem. Probably going to get it all back on again. Then they'll, yeah, fair enough. I'm just that guy, aren't I? So whatever. Just a harsh realist, aren't I?
Jesus.
Oh my god, man.
Hard to argue, though. Hard to argue. It does seem improbable that this run of form is capable of continuing.
Because I'm just saying, look at the team of players. Like they don't, like it's not even like the pieces are mad promising. Like, oh, they're going to be super good. It's like, if anything, they like I'm amazed they've gotten all this out of their team. Like, yeah, props to them. Like they're doing awesome now. But like, what future does this core have? Does anyone see this core being like the top 3 team in spring next year? Because by the logic of everyone hyping them now, you should be saying that. You should be like, oh, and then they'll build on it. A world, so it might be top 8. They've got. Will they fuck? They won't do any of that shit. Just be real.
I mean, I don't even think they're going to beat Mad Lions.
Maybe Schalke is a kryptonite to Damwon or something. You never know.
This is the secret counter, the matchup.
Yeah.
All right. Faith. Well, I've got to go. Thank you, Caedrel, for coming on. I think we all agree G2 is going to win. Is there any reason to not believe that?
No, I think G2's gonna win unless Schalke stomps everyone, and then it's like a finals. It's like that that picture from Attack on Titan. If you see the guy with the sword and then the massive beast in front of him, I think it's like G2's coming and then Schalke Miracle runs on his sword. So I mean that's the only way I see it being like a crazy finals, other than if Rogue steps up. But I think G2's gonna take it all. But I had lots of fun. It's been so funny being on this show. Yeah,
we'll have you. Well, there's plenty of more time to have you on, buddy. There's plenty more time to have you
awesome.
On. So next week. Unclear if we will have a show because I am running this Valorant tournament and I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to watch the games, which sucks because there's a lot of really good games going on this next week, including the LPL finals. I will do my best to be able to deliver a show to you guys next week. So apologies for that in advance if it doesn't happen. I will let you know this weekend if I've seen enough of the games to be able to do this. Otherwise, we'll be back the week after that. And that'll be it. So thanks a lot for watching. Be sure to follow the channel, etc. We'll see you either next week or the week after. Who can know?